I'm delighted to be there, honored to be part of this special event. And I'd like to thank the organization for the committee for the organization. Sorry. So let's talk a little bit about chemistry and about medium-sized ring. As everybody knows, they are found in natural product, bioactive product, and therapeutically relevant molecule. And when we talk about medium-sized ring, we talk about, is that right? Yeah, from 8 to 11 atoms. Their rigidity and their spatial arrangement often gives improved binding affinity to biological receptors and also better cell permeability or oral bioavailability. Despite this interesting feature, they are quite underrepresented in drug discovery program, and it is mostly due to the challenge, the well-known challenge of making them. So, because we have students following the lecture, I would think that it would be a nice slide to talk about. In fact, the formation of this ring experience high thermodynamic and kinetic barrier compared to other size ring, and it is because they are large enough that the cyclization starting from an acyclic precursor here is accompanied with a huge loss of entropy, but small enough that they undergo interaction, destabilizing interaction, transcellular strain. And one strategy to overcome this problem is to use ring expansion reaction, especially ring expansion of small ring size like cyclobutane or cyclopropane. And in this diagram, really simplified diagram, I represented the two scenarios. Either you start from the chain acyclic compound or a strain molecule, and the release of this inherent ring strain should bypass the kinetic challenge and would allow for a rapid buildup of molecular complexity. So during this presentation, I'll show you that a small ring, a cyclopropane, could be utilized for the formation of 6,4 and 8-membered ring. And since I've been rambling on medium-sized ring for 3 minutes now, I'm going to start with this project. So this was inspired by the sigmatropic rearrangement, the elegant sigmatropic rearrangement of bis-vinyl cyclopropane into the corresponding cycloheptadiene. And we were thinking, since the cyclopropane has a double bond, a CC double bond character, could we replace one of the double bonds by a cyclopropane and obtain the corresponding cycloheptadiene? Before going further, I'd like to add that for this rearrangement to occur, a cis relationship between the two alkene is necessary, and this rearrangement occurs at room temperature or even below spontaneously. So we have to keep in mind to have a cis relationship between the cyclopropane and the olefin. Okay, this assumption made, the geometric parameters raised, we next needed to find how to decorrect this framework in order to have two subsequent ring opting and a final cyclization to the 8-membered ring. So I'm going to walk you through the design of the precursor step by step, and to start with, the central element is a donor acceptor cyclopropane. The accepting part, the antagonist group on the vicinal position, plus the ring strain of the cyclopropane, leads to so you have a push-pull effect, and therefore the CC bond is prone to heterolytic cleavage. So for our example, we needed this alkene, and we thought that having a gem ester, vinyl ester would be electron withdrawing group enough to have this cooperative ring opening. For the donating part, that like 4 years ago described the cyclopropyl being a good donating group in donor acceptor cyclopropane. And we decided to add an oxygen, and it is largely inspired by trace chemistry about vinyl cyclopropanol and the propensity to rearrange. So if we take a look, an overall look at this precursor, it pretty looks like a precursor of an anionic oxycop. So first we had, of course, to make this compound. It's quite easy, in 4 steps only. We were able to obtain this compound in 69% with an excellent diastereomic ratio and thanks to rhodium-mediated cyclopropanation. Then, by simply stirring our bis cyclopropane in orthoxylene for 3 days, we observed the formation of the cyclooctene in 83% yield without the need of any catalyst or reagent. This is all great, but does it work with other groups? And we started to examine the scope of the reaction. With an aryl group on the donating part of the molecule, we could lower down the temperature to 100 degrees, and we observe in the crude the formation of the enol ether as a mixture of 2 different configurations, and we simply submitted the enol ether to a protic media and obtained the corresponding 8-membered ring. So, to make a long story short, it works with every kind of substitution. It tolerates a substituent at the para, meta, or ortho position. It tolerated as well the electron donating or withdrawing group. And the thing which should be underlined is we observe only the beta gamma regioisomer, meaning that this double bond, the tetrasubstituted, this cyclopropane, is broken during the process of the reaction. The diastereomeric ratio is not really good, and we had a mixture of trans-cis isomer. Next, we examine the reactivity of alkyl group, and this is a totally different scenario because, first of all, sometimes we obtain sometimes we obtain a mixture of 2 diastereomers in the starting material. So if you have a closer look, I represented it with one cyclopropane pointing down and the other one pointing up. In case of isopropyl and cyclohexyl, we observe the formation of only one regioisomer. It's because we started with only 1 diastereomer. And there was a cis relationship between the 2 diastereomers, and the diastereomeric ratio is really good. In case of primary alkyl, we have a mixture of the 2 diastereomers, and we obtain a mixture of 2 regioisomers. We managed to separate these diastereomers, run the reaction separately, and we could conclude that the reaction is completely regioselective. In both cases, the diastereoselectivity is really good. So in order to understand this mechanism, we ran extensive DFT calculation, and I just summarize it really quickly in one slide. Sorry if I offend you by my shortcuts, Jonathan. But the only thing I want to say today is, in fact, when we have a phenyl group, we go via radical mechanism. And so we have as an intermediate, a biradical, how you call that? A singlet open shell radical, biradical. This radical is delocalized on the 3 position here, and we didn't observe any 6-membered ring closure because of the configuration of this double bond, but instead the formation of the cyclooctene. The bond broken is the tetrasubstituted one because we stabilized the radical at that position with the phenyl group. For the alkyl groups, we did the DFT calculation on the methyl one, since we have a ratio of diastereomer 1:1. Oops, sorry. And this time, the reaction proceeds via a concerted mechanism, and the transition states adopt a chair-like conformation. And that's explained why, in this case, we have a cis relationship. Here we have free rotation, so it's the diastereoselectivity selectivity drops. So thanks to a careful design of our precursor, we managed to obtain 8-membered rings, and which is quite nice, and we diastereoselectively and regioselectively, depending on the case. So for the second part, I'm going to talk about benzocyclobutin, and I have to admit that serendipity was at work for that project. As I told you earlier, we thought that our precursor looked like a precursor of an anionic oxycope, and we wanted to accelerate the reaction and just add fluoride to the reaction. It did accelerate a reaction, not the reaction, and we observed the formation of benzocyclobutin in 58% yield. We suggest the following mechanism for the formation of this moiety. First, a deep protection, and then Michael addition onto a heteromycal addition onto this alpha-beta unsaturated ester would form the tricyclic furane. Then a retromical would trigger the ring opting and ring expansion of the cyclopropanol into the adjacent cyclopropane and induce its opening, and should afford dicyclobutinone. Then an aldolization, an intramolecular aldolization, would deliver a bicyclic compound. And finally, elimination followed by an aromatization could deliver the observed benzocyclobutin. So we were quite happy with this new result, and we decided to examine the scope of the reaction. And in fact, it didn't work. We either obtained the starting material or a mixture, at best, of the THA ring, the bicyclic compound, and trace of the expected benzocyclobutin. So we had to change the strategy, and we did a 2-step sequence in presence of a Lewis acid and magnesium iodide, and we obtained the corresponding building block in decent yield, and the regioselectivity once again depends on the diastereoselectivity of the starting material. We were also able to modulate the south part of the molecule and obtain a tosyl group at this position. That's quite nice because it differentiates the two substituents on the phenyl ring, and we could imagine performing a cross-coupling reaction to functionalize the benzocyclobutin. So to conclude, I didn't have a slide. To conclude, thanks to the careful design of the precursor, we managed to build a novel donor acceptor cyclopropane, and depending on the condition, we could reach molecular complexity, either 8-membered rings or the benzocyclobutin one. So what's next? We are now embarked in a project of polymerization, utilizing the monomer, the BCB as a monomer, and we hope that a controlled radical polymerization could afford a pi-conjugated system, and that hopefully will have semiconducting properties. So I'd like to thank these people for funding for this project, especially my co-workers, my former boss, Dr. Jean-Luc Parrin, Dr. Paola Nava for DFT calculation. Maxime Doucet initiated the work on both projects and is now working at Evotech in Lyon. Bogdan Bielitsky was a postdoc, and he did the optimization for the benzocyclobutin project and is now working at Spirogam. And Pierre and Kevin are finishing those projects and are still doing their PhD and will defend their PhD at the end of this year. So, okay. So Ian, I sent you a postcard. Since I can get easily emotional, I decided to write to you, and so it was in our time in Marseille when you come and visit with Nina in 2014, I think. And so I wrote to you, so in case I can't read it, then you can read it for yourself. And then I start crying. And I won't look at you. Dear Ian and Nina, I'm having a nice life here in Marseille, and I owe you big time. I learned so much by working in your lab. I knew I would be rubbish at it. Not only I increased in skills and knowledge in chemistry, but I admire the way you manage your team. You taught us how to work together, that joint effort could be rewarding. I like that you get excited each time a group was close to finish a total synthesis. I like the fact you spend time with us outside the lab. You manage to have a close-knit group, driven by shared and collegiate work. By the way, I'm sorry for the misspelling and whatever. It's not, of course, you can hear, it's not my main language. Of course, I admire the scientists and have always been impressed by your major contribution in total synthesis and polyketides. You and Nina supported me when I needed it the most. And you really...
Come on. Really nice. Really nice.
I sent you the postcard in real, you'll get it in the mail. Nice. And finally, I'd like to thank the lab mates from the Lab 122 when, during my time, 2005, 2006, my benchmate, Paul, the team really Spongelight, Gordon, Giuseppe, sorry, I couldn't find a normal picture of you, and Jonathan, somewhere up there. Karine welcomed me in her flat when I first arrived in Cambridge, and thank you all for your attention.